Good evening, I'm Ian Hannamansing. You're watching a special edition of The National. Tonight, we're tracking breaking news, another stunning development in a story that has shaken this country. The crash of Ukrainian International Airlines Flight 752. Iran admitting early Saturday morning, late tonight Canadian time, that it is responsible for shooting the plane out of the sky shortly after takeoff in Tehran, killing all 176 people on board, and that includes 57 Canadians. State media broadcast a statement from the military saying the plane was mistaken for a hostile target after it turned towards a sensitive military center. The military was, it said, at its highest level of readiness because of heightened tensions with the United States. The statement said the military apologized for the disaster and said it would upgrade its systems to prevent future tragedies, and that those responsible for the strike will be prosecuted. The Iranian president tweeted his own remorse. The Islamic Republic of Iran, he wrote, deeply regrets this disastrous mistake. My thoughts and prayers go to all the mourning families, and I offer my sincerest condolences. We have a team of reporters standing by for you tonight covering this breaking news. We are in Washington, Kiev, Ottawa, but let's begin in the region. The CBC's Margaret Evans is in Beirut for us tonight. You've had a little bit of time to process this surprise announcement by the Iranian government. What do you make of it?
Well, Ian, as you say, dawn is just breaking here. When we went to bed last night, the Iranian government was still denying that it had any responsibility, that there was even a possibility that a missile would have brought that plane down. Yesterday, they actually made a point of bringing out with state television the black boxes. They brought out a number of senior officials from the Iranian aviation industry, and they were all following the line. They said it could take up to 2 years before we would know what happened to that plane. They said that the black boxes had been damaged. And again, 100% saying that they could not conceive of a missile having shot that plane down. That was their only certainty. And so it's a huge surprise to see this about face, this turnaround from the Iranians, not known for that. We heard some rumors last night that they were going to be making an announcement today saying they had determined what the cause of the crash was. But to be honest, we all assumed that that meant that they were working a little bit harder on their story.
Is there anything, based on your knowledge of this region and of its politics and of the Iranian government, is there anything that you know about those things that helps you understand why this about face?
Well, I think that there was a real unity of messaging coming from the rest of the world, especially Western nations, about the intelligence they were saying had been gathered. Yesterday, an emergency meeting of European Union foreign ministers was held with the NATO Secretary General. He came out and said he saw no reason to doubt what the intelligence information he was hearing from allied capitals around the world. So I think that the feeling is that the evidence was becoming overwhelming, and in terms of plausible deniability. It is, though, a really surprising turnaround given the nature of the Iranian regime and the messaging that they'd come out that this was basically a plot. It was a fabrication designed to bring them down. The reason it's so surprising is it's going to hurt their credibility, not just in the region here, but with their own population, because they were saying all along that this was an operation of self-defense. But they said that they basically come out with this line that they had targeted U.S. bases in Iraq. They came out with a line about how many casualties there were there. They've actually since said that that isn't true. And obviously, as you know, there is dissent within Iran, and this is going to fuel that. Neighboring Iraq, there are also protests taking place against Iranian influence in their country. So it is going to harm them, but you're going to see them doubling down on this message that they were under attack, that the Americans are the ones who launched that attack against Qasem Soleimani and assassinated him, and that what they were doing is an act of self-defense. An unfortunate accident, they will say, but you'll hear this again and again from them. Not their fault. The Iranian foreign minister is actually talking about this being the result of U.S. adventurism.
We can hear occasionally Beirut waking up behind you, and thank you very much for this update, Margaret. Let's switch to Chris Brown now, who's in Kiev. And hours ago, in the first edition of The National, we saw pictures of him at a news conference, and Chris asking what exactly was the Ukraine's government's reaction to this Western sense that a missile may have been involved, and still early in the morning there in Kiev. Chris, but what sort of questions are you going to have for the Ukrainian government if you get a chance to ask them those questions today?
Well, we've not heard anything as yet. As you say, dawn is just breaking. The city's waking up. So we don't have any statement from Volodymyr Zelensky or the foreign minister, Vadim Prystaiko. But Ukraine has played a pivotal role in this investigation. Obviously, it was their plane that crashed, their crew, 11 Ukrainians in total. And crucially, Ukraine also has 45 investigators on the ground right now in Tehran. And so it seems to me over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, that Ukraine's prime directive has really been to try to keep relations as strong as possible, as open as possible with the Iranian government, to give those investigators on the ground a chance to do their jobs. And so when Justin Trudeau and other Western leaders came out and very equivocally said that they believed that this was a missile that downed this aircraft, that has not been Ukraine's position. You mentioned that news conference last night. We asked repeatedly, well, when you see these videos of missiles going up, how could really it be anything else? What other possible explanation could there be? And the Ukrainians have been saying, well, hold on, we have to take our time, we have to walk through this, and so forth, almost, as I say, trying to give Iran the benefit of the doubt. No sense last night that they knew here what the announcement was going to be coming out this morning in Iran, though. I will say one thing about what we heard at that news conference last night, which does contradict what was said in the statement today from Iran, and that was about where the plane was when it was hit. The foreign minister was asked, should that aircraft even have been taking off from Tehran given the hostilities? And his answer was, well, we've looked at the flight path data, we've looked at the radar tracking, and we believe the plane was where it was supposed to be, and that is in a well-marked, well-traveled international flight corridor leaving Tehran when it was hit. So whereas the Iranians said the plane took a turn going towards some military installations, that has not been, according to the Ukrainian government here, what their preliminary investigation has found. Beyond that, they are saying that at least it appeared that Iran has been cooperating. They said they have not looked at all parts of the aircraft yet. In particular, they noted they haven't seen passenger seats and so forth. But it does seem that there is at least a pretty good working arrangement on the ground between the Ukrainian investigators and the Iranian ones. Ian.
And you were saying earlier that the airline had already planned to hold a news conference before this new information. So I know you'll be putting questions to them in a few hours about what the Iranian government is now saying. Chris Brown reporting for us from Kyiv, Ukraine. And, you know, when you go back to how the Iranian government responded to this disaster, in the early hours, they said it was mechanical failure, but didn't explain what that was based on. Then, as we've heard, they were adamant that this wasn't a missile, despite what Prime Minister Trudeau and others were saying. And now this new twist to the story that they say the Ukrainian jet had turned and headed towards a military-sensitive target, and though the missile was sent by mistake, it was that turn that led to the missile being launched. Is that true? We will probably get more, well, we may get more information later today in that airline news conference about the precise path of that jet. Let's go to David Cochrane now in Ottawa for the Canadian, the political implications here. I was going to say the Canadian political reaction, David, but have you heard from the Prime Minister's office?
Yeah, Ian, we've just gotten our first reaction from the Prime Minister's office to this astonishing admission from Iran tonight. The Prime Minister was being briefed by his officials after the Iranian government made this admission that they had, in fact, shot down this plane. And here's what the Prime Minister has had to say. He says, "Our focus remains closure, accountability, transparency, and justice for the families and loved ones of the victims. This is a national tragedy, and all Canadians are mourning together. We will continue working with our partners around the world to ensure a complete and thorough investigation, and the Canadian government expects full cooperation from Iranian authorities." Now, in its substance there, Ian, that is not really any kind of a shift from what the Prime Minister has been saying throughout the week. I mean, going back to Wednesday with his first news conference, where he indicated, I think, where he believed this was going, when he would not rule out the possibility the plane had been shot down. Then the next day, he was quite explicit that Canadian intelligence and intelligence from our allies pointed to the plane being shot down by an Iranian missile. Throughout that, the focus from the Prime Minister has been to get Iran to open its doors, to let Canadian officials in, and to provide the answers that they need. The call has been, and the pressure has been, on an investigation that focused on those four principles he's outlined in that statement tonight, on closure, accountability, transparency, and justice. That is still the position of the Canadian government tonight, even with this admission of wrongdoing. They are counting on further cooperation from Iranian officials on this, because there are 57 Canadian citizens killed in this. There are bodies that need to be identified, there are remains that need to be repatriated, and there are grieving families who need to be helped. That has been the focus from the Prime Minister for the last couple of days, and even with this admission tonight, the statement makes it clear that is going to continue to be the focus, while they also pressure Iran to come forward with even more answers.
David, I was looking through the emails that we've been receiving from viewers over the last day or so, and we've received a lot, and there were some common themes. And one of them was about the tone of the Prime Minister in the news conference yesterday. And some people were wondering, should he have been more forceful? Why wasn't he speaking more strongly in a more accusatory way towards the Iranian government? Given your experience as a political reporter, what can you tell us about the tone, not only the actual words the Prime Minister has used, but the way he's been using them?
Well, I would say two things. One, I think to stand in the National Press Theatre and pretty emphatically accuse a foreign power of shooting down a plane that has its own citizens and your citizens on it is a strong tone to take. But he was not so accusatory and so angry because, quite frankly, he needs the cooperation of Iran in this situation on many levels, to identify the bodies, to provide consular services for the grieving families, and to get those bodies returned home. Standing up and being very loud and aggressive may satisfy a political instinct, may satisfy an emotional instinct, but it may also close down avenues that you need opened to support the families of the people who are killed on this plane.
Exactly the political analysis I was hoping for. Thank you very much, David.
You got it. Thanks.
Let's go now to the U.S. Capitol. Susan Ormston joins us from Washington. And Susan, let's begin with what the Iranians are saying about the U.S. bearing some responsibility here.
Well, first, the Iranian president came out and tweeted that he deeply regrets, as we've heard, and called this an unforgivable mistake, which is quite extraordinary. But then the foreign minister, Javad Zarif, who's been a bit more hawkish through this whole incident, also drew a line under this, saying that the Iranian human error was caused by, quote, U.S. adventurism. So we're going to hear more of that, as Margaret has been saying, from the Iranians, drawing a line between the U.S. assassination of Soleimani and this unforeseen, regrettable incident involving the missile. Let's step it out a little bit. What the military was saying in Iran was that after those Iranian air strikes against Iraqi bases on late Tuesday night, targeting U.S. and allied forces, the whole country was on high alert, and their own military, the Iranian military, was seeing evidence of a lot more U.S. military aircraft around its borders, so it was on high alert. Their radar was picking up a lot more activity. Again, setting the stage for sensitive and high alert among the radar systems and the air defense systems in Iran. And then, of course, there were, as we've said, at least 10 commercial aircraft leaving the airport around Tehran between midnight and 6 a.m. Iran time when the Ukrainian Airlines was flying. So there were commercial aircrafts taking off, and one of them was mistaken for a military target. And that's what happened. But again, They are saying that it was the U.S. that started this through the assassination of Soleimani, something that President Trump and the Secretary of State have roundly criticized and defended the U.S.'s position on this.
I was talking to David Cochrane. Susan, you may have heard about Prime Minister Trudeau's tone throughout all of this. What about the U.S. president's tone? Donald Trump has been tweeting.
Yes, well, this admission by Iran came out late in the evening U.S. time, and we've only seen 2 tweets from President Trump, both of them retweets, so nothing new. But the first retweet right after this admission was his statement to the country on Wednesday, a portion of that when he came out and very confidently said, as long as I am president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. That was reprising what he said on Monday morning, and that was his immediate response to the Iranian admission. He went on to retweet another tweet that said that Soleimani was a murderer and a thug. So that's the only 2 things we've heard about him. We know he was awake and got the news of this startling admission. And clearly the U.S. must think tonight that they have Iran on the back foot.
An early morning for Margaret and Chris in Europe, a late night for you and David Cochrane. And Susan, we really appreciate your reporting on this. Thank you. The enormity of this tragedy for many is still sinking in. These are just some of the people who were on that flight, flying to Canada to study, to work, to reunite with their loved ones. And from coast to coast today, they were remembered. On top of the heart-wrenching grief and horrible circumstances, there are other practical issues as well. As the CBC's Karen Pauls tells us, those challenges only deepen the pain for victims' families.
Just days after the deadly crash, victims' families had to face their fears and board airplanes.
So right now, the most important thing for all of us is to just go to Iran to identify the bodies and then attending the funeral.
Javad Soleimani and Ali Reza Ganji met on the flight from Toronto to Frankfurt. Soleimani's wife, Alnaz Nabii, died in the crash. Ganji lost his wife, Faiza Falsafi, his daughter, who would have turned 18 tomorrow, and his 8-year-old son.
We are waiting to understand what's happened.
The 2 men are stuck in Frankfurt, waiting for their airline to resume flights to Tehran. Paul Jaroge knows exactly how they feel. His family was killed in the crash of a Boeing MAX 8 in Ethiopia last March.
You're lost. The void, the solitude, the imagination of your loved one last moments.
One of the stresses, the time it will take to get the remains. Islam calls for burial as soon as possible, but for the families of Flight 752, that could take months.
So it's important they get to the crash site. It also helps you to know that it's going to be a long process.
Some of the victims didn't have family in Canada, leaving their friends to deal with their homes and belongings here. Saeed Ghavami's friend Farouk Khadam was a talented immunology researcher in Winnipeg.
She is a fantastic woman and a role model for scientific society.
Her parents in Iran are signing legal documents, giving Ghavami authority to wrap up her estate. Back in the Frankfurt airport, the shock is starting to wear off, replaced by indescribable grief.
In just 1 second, I lost all of my life.
And I don't know how can I continue my life.
Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
We have much more breaking news coverage ahead for you. The special edition of The National continues right after this. Let's take you back to our breaking news this hour. Iran claiming responsibility tonight for shooting down Flight 752. In a statement read out on Iranian state television, the country's military says human error caused the downing of Boeing 737-800 aircraft. 176 people were on board. Everyone was killed, and 57 of those passengers were Canadians. 138 people were bound for Canada. While Iran has changed its position on what caused the crash, we don't know whether it will do the same in terms of making it easier for countries like Canada to be involved in the investigation. Before this big announcement, Canada had its own plan, a new plan to increase pressure on Iran to grant investigators access. Ashley Burke has that story.
Canada has pushed for access since day one. Now it has reinforcements.
This group brings together representatives of Ukraine, Sweden, Afghanistan, and the United Kingdom, who are all grieving and also searching for answers.
Countries who lost citizens now forming an international response group, one voice to put pressure on Iran.
We want full accountability. We want answers to these questions, and the world is watching what the Iranian government is doing now.
What they want is to be part of the investigation, to make sure it's transparent and thorough. So far, Iran hasn't granted that. But under international requirements, Canada is allowed to visit the crash site and receive updates on the case.
Every country that does an investigation needs other countries to help, other resources to help. There's no doubt about it. And they need people, expertise. They need the people that know the information about the operation, about the aircraft, to come and help them.
2 Transportation Safety Board investigators are in Turkey waiting for visas. But by the time they get to Tehran, there may not be much of a scene left.
That's not the normal way of handling it all. It's very shoddy work. And the integrity of the crash site is very important for so many reasons. You map where you get the wreckage from to see how the airplane broke up.
When a missile brought down Malaysian Airlines Flight 17, investigators reconstructed the plane piece by piece, searching for definitive proof of what brought it down. That's the next step for investigators in Iran.
There's a lot of pieces. You can see the wreckage is all broken up. Identifying the pieces, difficult sometimes, takes a lot of work, has to be done systematically, and takes a long time.
The 2 Canadians granted visas so far are consular officials responsible for helping families and identifying victims. But 10 more Canadian officials still want in. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
So a lot of concern about how the crash site is being treated and what condition it's in, but maintaining its integrity may be difficult given how big the area is. The media has had limited access because of how challenging it is for them to enter Iran. CBS's Elizabeth Palmer is one of the few Western journalists there, and here's what she saw today.
We've arrived at what the local people say is the crash site. There are no guards here. Nobody tried to stop us coming in. In fact, there are people all over, some looking for things of value to take away, some just reflecting on what's happened. There isn't much of the plane left. Local people say that trucks, cranes showed up and took most of the pieces that were here away. Clearly, this is an impact crater behind me, another one over there, but they're empty. At the moment, it doesn't appear that the Ukrainian investigators have come to the site, and whatever evidence was here is just not here anymore.
You're watching a special edition of The National. We're following a major breaking story on Flight 752. We'll be back right after this. We're following major breaking news tonight. The Iranian government taking responsibility for shooting down the Ukrainian jetliner, blaming, quote, human error. Military officials saying the plane was mistaken for a hostile target and was unintentionally shot down. The announcement reverses Iran's original claim that mechanical issues caused the deadly crash. As the families of the victims struggle to get into Iran, they're left wondering why Flight 752 was allowed to fly at all, as the tensions between the U.S. and Iran seem to boil over. Susan Ormiston went looking for the answer.
Tuesday night. After Iranian missiles aimed at Americans, President Trump huddled in the Situation Room tweeted, "All's well." But at that very moment, Flight 752 was flaming to the ground, hit by a different Iranian missile. With Iran on high alert, why was that passenger jet even flying? It wasn't the only one. A dozen commercial flights flew in, mostly out of Tehran early that morning. Lufthansa, Qatar Airways, Turkish Airlines all made it. Ukrainian Airlines didn't.
I think it would have been wise for everyone to stay out of that airspace.
And
it's
why?
Just too unpredictable right now. It's too volatile.
But why do you think they didn't?
You don't feel that the risk is there to change your operation. It changes flight times, it changes fuel, and in some cases it limits the number of people they can carry on board. So there are significant operational ramifications.
Ukraine's foreign minister said Flight 752 was flying in a designated safe corridor. But Iran could have, and many argue should have, closed its airspace.
It's the responsibility of the government that owns the airspace to let everyone know if there is a change in the safety conditions within that airspace, if there's a potential for hostilities, if there's military action, anything like that.
Also, national regulators could have issued air advisories. The U.S. did. 2 NOTAMs, notice to airmen, hours before, forbidding U.S. aircraft or pilots from flying over Iraq or Iran. Tragically, these same questions raged after MH17 was shot down by a Russian Buk missile over Ukraine. And tonight, other world airlines are skirting Iran and Iraq. Europe has issued an advisory. No Canadian airlines fly direct, but Transport Canada has formalized its warning with a NOTAM, advising operators to stay clear. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
You're watching a special edition of The National as we follow the major breaking news on Flight 752 developing just in the last hour or so. Iran, as you can see on your screen, admitting responsibility for launching a missile. They say it was unintentional. They say the people responsible will be prosecuted, but they do admit the Iranian military launching a missile that brought down the Ukrainian jet. We'll be right back. We continue to follow some breaking news this hour. Iran now admitting responsibility for firing a missile at Flight 752. In a statement on Iranian state television, the country's military says human error caused the downing of the Boeing 737. 176 people were on board. Everyone was killed, and 57 of those passengers were Canadian, and a total of 138 were bound for this country. Throughout the week in this story, we have been collecting questions from many of you, and earlier tonight we had some experts answer them. Of course, this was recorded before the major breaking news that we've been telling you about this hour, that Iran has taken responsibility for shooting down the airplane. Turning back to our top story tonight, the downing of Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 outside Tehran. There are still so many more questions than answers. As families grieve, the search for those answers continues, not just from investigators or officials, but also from many of you. So many viewers have sent in thoughtful questions, and we're going to try to answer as many as we can with our panel here tonight. Janice Stein of the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy is in our Toronto studio. Saeed Khan, a Middle East expert, is with Wayne State University. He's in Detroit tonight. And from Ottawa, Larry Vance, a former investigator with the Transportation Safety Board. Glad to have all three of you with us. Our first viewer question comes from Khalil Jafari, and he asks, and a lot of people actually asked a similar question, how could Iran allow civil aviation while they're attacking other countries? Larry, let's start with you on that.
Well, they're supposed to shut the airspace down if there's a perceived threat from military operations. That's how it's supposed to work. There's no central agency, though, in the world that says we're going to keep an eye on all of this and tell everybody, all the airlines flying all around the world, to in fact, don't go there. So it was up to Iran has control of the airspace. Iran should have shut their airspace down. There are protocols through ICAO that airlines and countries are supposed to use, but the international community is full of protocols and they're not mandatory. Something went wrong here. The Ukrainians should have been informed that the airspace was dangerous, and Iran should have shut it down. That's how it should have worked.
Janice, knowing what you do about this part of the world, were you surprised that there were commercial jetliners flying that morning?
I actually was, Ian, because the airspace previously had been closed over the Gulf. So it was surprising to me that the airspace around the major civilian airport would be open. However, what we do know is governments are always enormously reluctant to shut down their civilian airport. It's a signal of vulnerability to everybody else, and they go to great lengths to keep that civilian airspace open. This was a tragic mistake here.
And as Larry points out, I mean, the airlines also make their individual decisions, talking to people like you, right, to assess the risk, and Ukrainian Airlines decided to go ahead. Let's go on to our next question now. Brian McEwen wrote us to ask, Iran said that they would target the United States and their allies, so he's wondering why there has not been more discussion about whether this was intentional. After all, Canada is a U.S. ally. Saeed?
Well, Canada is a U.S. ally, but the aircraft was actually Ukrainian, not an adversary to Iran, and not one that would be considered to be a U.S. ally as far as the coalition forces in the region goes. The second thing, of course, is the reason why the intentional possibility doesn't really factor in is because there really hasn't been anything conclusive to prove that Iran was trying to down this plane. In fact, just a few hours ago, the Ukrainian foreign minister simply said that it's too soon to draw any conclusions about this and is seeking to have full disclosure of the investigation before coming to some kind of a judgment on it.
Yeah, so I guess one question is, we may get to this, is whether it's a missile at all. But even if it is a missile, we heard from the United States, from the Prime Minister of Canada, from others, that it was likely unintentional. Let's go on to our next question. Michael Varus wrote us to ask, what actions will Canada take if the theory of the missile downing the aircraft proved to be true? Janice?
Well, I think the really crucial distinction here, Ian, was it deliberate or was it intentional? Or was it accidental? There's absolutely no action that our government will take if this was a tragic mistake. And I think that's the overwhelmingly likely event. For this to be an intentional attack, it would be unprecedented for a country to shoot down a civilian aircraft in its own airport. There is no precedent for that. So I think this is accidental. And if this is an accidental mistake, our government will not take any action, nor will any other government take action.
But Janice, help us understand, how could it be accidental? How would that come about?
It could have been accidental because an operator who was manning the batteries around the airport misread that aircraft, thought it was a military aircraft rather than a civilian aircraft, fired a missile to take down what they thought was a threat. The United States did that. It shot down an Iranian civilian aircraft when one of its operators made exactly the same kind of misjudgment. Humans make errors all the time.
And Larry, based on what you know about investigating air crashes, does the missile theory seem to be a plausible, likely one to you?
Absolutely, it does. Ian, what happened to the airplane that we see in the video, provided that's validated, we see a missile hitting an airplane. We know that the airplane was disabled almost instantaneously. There's very, very few, probably no, mechanical issues on the airplane that I can think of, or that anybody that I talk to can think of, that would disable an airplane that quickly and cause the airplane to take the flight profile that it did.
Let's go back to viewer questions now. Jennifer and Mark Halleck would like to know, why were there so many Canadians on the flight, so many people connected to Canada? Saeed?
Well, Ukrainian International Airlines is actually one of the few, if any others exist, airlines that has a very simple flight plan to Canada. From Tehran, there's one stop at the hub in Kyiv, and then from there it's a nonstop flight to Toronto. So for those who are looking at perhaps the shortest distance, the shortest connection time from one point to the other, this would definitely be the ideal flight for them.
And we also had a lot of international students, Ian, students from Iran studying in Canada, many of them dual citizens, who'd gone home to Iran for the holiday break between semesters. That's why we had such extraordinary losses in the universities across the country.
Next question comes from Peter Rowley in Toronto. He'd like to know if there's any precedent for a country like Iran to be successfully sued for damages if, in fact, this was a missile that brought down the plane. Larry, we touched on this a bit already, but what's your view of that?
Yeah, there's not a lot of guidance in that area. There are a couple of occurrences from the past. One has already been mentioned. The United States shot down an Iranian aircraft back in the late 1980s. And what happened after that was that Iran sued the United States, and the United States ended up paying tens of millions of dollars to the passengers who were aboard that aircraft. The other one is the Malaysian Air Flight 17 that was shot down over the Ukraine, in fact, 4 or 5 years ago. And what happened there was that the passengers were compensated by the airline, by Malaysian Air, and I don't know the amounts, but I know that they were compensated for that.
You know, this whole story began really as an aviation story, and now it's turning maybe into a political relations, international relations story, and that leads us to a question from Cesar Cano, who says, can or should the Canadian government adopt a tougher position against Iran? And he also asks about options around, for example, implementing more sanctions. Saeed?
Well, if this was an accident, then it seems unwise and perhaps inappropriate to go ahead and seek some kind of tougher and even punitive measures. As terrible as this is, an accident it may be. If, on the other hand, it is proven to be an intentional act, and again, we simply don't know, there's no indication that it would be seen as an intentional act, well, then the Canadian government has to really decide whether it is sufficient to then press for perhaps more diplomatic isolation of Iran, press for more sanctions. But again, as both Larry and Janice have indicated, the current circumstances probably don't call for the Canadian government to really have too many options in that direction.
I really appreciate hearing all of you address these questions and providing the best answers we can at this point. And for those of you at home watching this, please sending in questions. This story certainly will merit more investigation. I have to tell you, some of the questions we got we're digging into because they don't lend themselves to easy answers as we continue to wonder what exactly led to this tragedy. So impressive answers from that panel, especially when you consider we did it before the major development late tonight. We now know for sure what brought down the plane. Iran admitting it shot the plane down with a missile, claims it was a mistake. We'll have more after the break on this special edition of The National. This is Iranian state television broadcasting early Saturday morning in Iran, late tonight in Canada. A statement from the military. It said Ukrainian Airlines Flight 752 was mistaken for a hostile target and shot down shortly after takeoff from Tehran. All 176 people on board were killed, among them 57 Americans. Many more were en route to this country. There were Canadians aboard the plane. Tonight's admission is another devastating detail in a tragedy that has deeply affected communities from coast to coast to coast. David Cochran is in Ottawa, and he has more reaction to this breaking news tonight. So, David, so many Canadians on this plane, so many more who are headed to this country, many of them studying in universities, and so both the Canadian government and families of people who died in that crash trying to get into Iran, first of all, and once they get there, trying to either investigate or, if it's the case of families, find out more about what happened. What are some of the challenges they're going to face?
Yeah, there have been really a couple of tracks in Canada's approach to this. There has been the ongoing and loud call for a clear and transparent investigation to find out how and why this happened. Well, we now have the admission of wrongdoing from Iran, so I'm not sure that settles a big question. I don't know if it settles all of the questions, but the second track has been to just get into the country. The former Harper government closed the embassy in September of 2012. There's been no formal diplomatic relations with Iran since then, so that complicates the matter, as there are no officials on the ground like there would be in a country where we had an active embassy and an ongoing relationship. So what happened very early is the Global Affairs Rapid Response Team was deployed to go to the region. 10 consular officials who went to Ankara and Turkey to meet with the Iranian officials there to try to be issued visas so they could get into the country to provide consular services on the ground and help with things like body identification and repatriation to bring the remains of the family members back to Canada who want to have them brought back to Canada. And also 2 Transportation Safety Board officials have been deployed to Turkey as well. The latest information we have on that is, of those 12 officials, Iran has granted 2 visas. So there are still 10 more people they want to get into the country. There are indications that Iran may very well cooperate and allow that to happen, but it has been a slow process, obviously with the political maelstrom that has been surrounding this whole thing. So it has been one of the challenges already layered on top of a very difficult event. And also when you factor in the fact that the Americans, for example, have significant sanctions against Iran in place and required Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin to say earlier today that he would be willing to waive visa restrictions for people who could go in to help with this investigation. So the tense and really non-existent diplomatic relations that existed up to this plane going down was already a layer of complexity that they have been struggling to go through, while also comfort the families here at home and try to get them the answers and push for an investigation based on transparency, accountability, closure, as the Prime Minister says, and most importantly, justice.
All right, David Cochrane in Ottawa, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And so in Ottawa, Washington, other capitals are monitoring Iran's crash investigation. Donald Trump is making new claims to explain his decision to kill Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. He says Iran was targeting multiple American embassies with large-scale attacks.
We will tell you that probably it was going to be the embassy in Baghdad. I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies.
Trump's comments on Fox News follow what he told reporters on Thursday, that America killed the Iranian commander last week because Iran was looking to blow up the embassy. Iran responded with a missile attack on U.S. troops stationed in Iraq, which today led Washington to impose a new round of sanctions.
We will continue to apply economic sanctions until Iran stops its terrorist activities and commit that it will never have nuclear weapons.
The new sanctions are in addition to those reinstated after the U.S. pulled out of the 2015 nuclear deal. Some of the sectors targeted include Iran's manufacturing, mining, and textile sectors. So we're following major breaking news this hour. The National continues right after this. Well, in some ways, the story of Flight 752 has moved with astonishing speed and filled with surprises, and that happened again late tonight. A short time ago, the government of Iran accepted responsibility for shooting down the plane. A military statement read by state media a short while ago said that human error led them to mistake the aircraft for a hostile target launching a missile. As you know, everyone aboard, 176 people, died in the crash. Many of those passengers were Canadian and many more were headed to this country. And we've seen the memorials, in fact, this hour, seeing the memorials primarily at universities right across the country. So in terms of the headlines from this late development on this big story, the key ones are, as I just mentioned, Iran accepting responsibility, saying that its military did fire the missile, and saying that it was human error, that it was a mistake, and that they apologized for it. But at the same time, you heard earlier this hour the Iranian foreign minister blaming, at least in an implied way, maybe even in an explicit way, blaming the United States for raising the level of tension in the area, of beginning the hostilities with their drone strike, and suggesting that that was to blame for the high state of military readiness that the Iranian military was in. In such a condition because of human error, this is from a statement from the military, and in an unintentional way, the flight was hit. According to the military, it did apologize. And here are a couple of interesting developments. They say they will upgrade their systems to prevent future tragedies. They also said those responsible for the strike on the plane would be prosecuted. You're watching a special edition of The National for this January 10th. Good night.